Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Streamed live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I was busy doing something else, and you called me. And I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. I'm usually joined by Tommy Lewis, but Tommy Lewis is out on assignment again, and he's left me to man the ship, and so I'm grateful to be able to do that. Without really any delay, I'm going to bring to the main stage my really good friend, longtime friend, Dorron Hunter. Dorron, how are you this morning?
Doing great, Eric, man. Good morning to you.
Man, I've been thinking about this interview and so excited to be able to have you join me. You know, it's kind of like, our faith, both of us, our faith is important to us.
Yes.
And I feel like God told me some years ago that it didn't matter who would be viewing these shows on a regular basis, that we were leaving a record that we were here, and that my children and their children and their children would be able to go back and see who their grandfather, great-grandfather was, what he cared about, and who he cared about. And so I've been so blessed to have people that are important to me be able to join us on this show. And so I just have been excited about you joining me, man, because you're a brother who's important to me. And what I generally like to do, Dorron, is really allow people to introduce themselves, to our community. And you got it. When your head stays in front of that light, we in good shape. But what I'd like to do is, Dorron, I want you to go back even as far as Lincoln Heights and your start into sports, because that's how we first met each other.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I really want to walk through the stages in your life, and because I want people to know who you are, how you were raised, the values that your family gave you as a little kid. You know, when you first knew you were talented at sports. You know, I just want to kind of go through the highs, the lows that bring us right down to today. We do have an interview from you, and we'll be able to share that with the audience as well, you know, as we get through this. But this is one of those shows, man, that today, this is your life.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that, Eric, man. I'm glad to be on with you. I'm going to miss my other good friend, Tommy Lewis. You guys are two of my favorite people on this planet. First of all, I want to give honor to God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I would be remiss if I didn't do that.
Right.
And I want to thank you for allowing me to be on you guys' show this morning. I'm going to go back growing up in Lincoln Heights, man. I would not want to live or grow up anywhere other than where I grew up at. Lincoln Heights, despite all the things people try to say about Lincoln Heights was this, Lincoln Heights was, if you didn't grow up in Lincoln Heights, you can't understand the dynamics of a community and how much family that we were at that time, from Wabash to Shepherd Lane and all the streets in between. We were just family.
Right.
You know, I grew up we went to Lincoln Heights Elementary School, and as a kid, we all dreamed of growing up and becoming Lincoln Heights Tigers.
Right.
You know, because Lincoln Heights had everything. We had our own restaurants, cab stands, bus, grocery store, pharmacy. I mean, everything we needed was right there in our community, man.
Right.
So the only time we had to really leave Lincoln Heights was to go clothes shopping. Other than that, everything was right there, man. And I tell you what, man, my childhood was magnificent, man. I had two great parents, my mom and my dad, Edward and Maggie Hunter. They raised us up in the church. It was 10 of us, man,
Okay.
7, 8 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
And I mean, we didn't have everything, but we had everything we needed.
Right.
And every now and then we would have some things we wanted.
Right.
Amen.
Right. Now, where did you fit in the 10?
I was number 9.
Okay.
I was way down the list, number 9. You know, I had 7 big brothers, man. That just 6 big brothers that taught me everything, man, that I needed to know. I had my father, you know, my mom and dad was disciplinarians, man. They didn't play.
Right.
You know, like they didn't play.
Right.
You know, if I promised you that, you was gonna get that. You know,
right.
without me even saying that, you know what I mean? If
Absolutely, man.
You know, if it happened in aisle 8, that's where the cleanup was gonna be in aisle 8, buddy. Amen.
That's right. That's right. They label some of that as abuse today, man. But when we grew up, I mean, my mother would even use a extension cord. Now I know they were locked up today.
Yes, sir.
She didn't want to do no work. She just had you know. But I know that my father was the same way, man. That if the teachers called home, and I'd acted up, oh man, it's gonna be all bad. So right.
But and what was so beautiful about Lincoln Heights Elementary School, I mean, anybody's parents could get to the school within 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
And we had a principal, man, that he would come to the classroom every single morning. And this was instilling that pride in us as young men from kindergarten to 6th grade. That's what the elementary school went.
Right.
And so he would come and check everybody's shirt tail.
Okay.
And if your shirt tail was not tucked in, you got swatted. You got swatted.
Right.
So, I mean, he did that every single morning. And there were teachers, if you came to school and your hair wasn't combed, they put you between their legs and they combed your hair.
Right.
They cared about us.
Wow, we missed that.
They cared, and most of those teachers, 99% of them, lived in the community.
Right.
So we would see them, you know, on a daily. You might see them in Kroger's or, you know, anywhere. We could see our teachers, and they had relationships with all of our parents. So, and then if you got in trouble, and I surely wasn't getting in none, I knew better.
Right.
The principal would hand your parents his keys to his office and say, when you finish, give them to my secretary. We'll see you later. And so we didn't have a lot of those. We didn't have a lot of those discipline problems. We didn't have a lot of that. We did not.
You couldn't imagine what's happening today in some of the schools.
Yeah.
Because of the involvement, the engagement, the discipline, the love. And in many ways, society has some responsibility for train wrecking some of our communities, you know. And so we got some work to do. So you got up through the 6th grade. When did you start playing football or basketball first? Or did you just play anything with a ball?
I started football when I was 10 years old. So I was about in the 6th grade. And I started out playing offensive guard.
Okay.
Number 62.
Right.
And I don't know, for some reason that next year I just felt like I wanted to run that ball, man. And I'm not going to, a good friend of mine back then, as I was walking over, you know, where the running backs was, he's like, "Oh, honey, you don't know how to run the ball. What you want over here?"
Right.
I've never forgotten that to this day. I was 10 years old, but I've never forgotten that to this day. So that's where some of my fuel started, right there.
Right. Now, were you playing for the Lincoln Heights team?
Yes, Lincoln Heights Eagles.
Lincoln Heights Eagles.
Lincoln Heights
See,
Eagles.
I remember playing you all. You graduated in 78, right?
77.
77. So I remember playing Lincoln Heights. I was a couple years behind you. Oh, they was always singing songs, man.
Yes, sir.
You know. They start singing them songs. I was playing for P&O. You know, I was like, oh, Lord. They singing songs?
Yes, sir. And it's funny you mentioned P&O. The one game I remember, our coach came to practice and he said, "Y'all, this was 1972. He said, P&O ain't practiced not one day this week because they said they playing Lincoln Heights. They don't need to practice."
Ooh.
Oh, my God. What did he tell us that for? Oh my God. Hey,
You
P&O
gotta
was
go
in
on.
trouble. They was in trouble that day, man. And I mean, he carried that all the way through to that Saturday, man. They ain't, remember, guys, they ain't practiced. They just, and that song that the Titans sung, and remember the Titans, everywhere we go, people want to know who
Yeah, that's the
we are.
song. That's the
That came,
song.
that came from Lincoln Heights, man. They
I
stole
know.
that.
I heard y'all. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the song that I remember y'all singing.
That's it. That was it. That was the
Right.
one. That
Now,
was our theme song.
now you played guard the first year.
Yes, sir.
Transition to running back the next year.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What did they see? When did you start having some success at it?
I think when I went to Pee Wee League playing for Coach Paul Blackwell,
Yeah.
I was 12 years old,
Okay.
and we won the first Bantam championship for him in 1972.
Okay.
And we played Western A&A. You might know some of the guys, Durrell Brown.
Yeah.
All those guys, we played against them. They played for Western A&A.
Right.
Rick Richardson. And
right. Because I think Lance Hawkins was playing for Western AA a couple years behind.
Yes.
And then he went to Woodward or something like that. He went to one of them schools. Right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So that right there kind of catapulted me into a little bit of what you call a little stardom. You know, I started to realize, that, this, I can do this.
Right.
I can do this.
Right.
And fast forward, man. And then I said, everybody.
Did you ever play for the Tomahawks, or what were you doing parallel to them? Did you know about the Tomahawks?
I knew about them.
Okay.
I knew about them, but I always played. They came and tried to actually recruit me to play.
Right.
But
because Dick Seitz was over there. Tony Robertson was playing for the Tomahawks. So that's where I started. I started with the Tomahawks at 9 years old.
Okay.
And I remember I was 9 years old. One game we had lost bad, but I was really working hard and had played a decent game. And the coach made everybody call out my name. Who's our hero? 42. I mean, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing things spectacular, but I was beating people and things like that. And I was a small guy. But those experiences that we had in Little League sports helped to shape both positive and negative memories.
Absolutely.
Memories.
And let me go back to Lincoln Heights Elementary School.
Yeah.
One thing that they did that I've never forgotten as well, Black history for us, it was every day. We had freedom fighters on the wall. Now I want you to imagine this right here. And every day we would see those and we would go up and read. It would, tell you who they were, what they did. And we would read that. And so during the course of the day, if they asked you like, Eric, who was Martin Luther King?
Oh, you had an answer.
And you came up with the answer. Now picture this right here as a kid. All day long, you heard your name over the loudspeaker saying, Eric Ellis answered the question about Martin Luther King. He's our Black and our proud student of the day. Imagine hearing that every single day we heard that somebody was that. And so when we got merged, my 6th grade year going into 7th grade, we merged with Princeton.
Right.
And they start talking about Black History Month. And so we were like, so what is that?
Right.
So like, what is Black History Month? Because we had Black history every day.
Right.
So for us, it was like, that was something new for us. It was, and when we merged there, I played for Lincoln Heights till I could not play for Lincoln Heights anymore. I did not want to play at Princeton.
Right.
That's just being honest.
Yeah.
But we got bust there because they turned us down the first time. They turned us down.
Yeah. How was that, Dorron? Because you went through that period, man. We heard about it, but how was that experience?
It was horrible, man. It was horrible. And my first, because I had wonderful parents, they set us down before we went up there and they said, listen, I'm sending you to school to learn. I don't care if they fighting over here, over there. You better go the other way. So that's all I needed to hear, man. And I promise you, being a 7th grader, like 12, 13 years old, and man, they was fighting, man. I mean, they was fighting, and they was fighting some more. And one thing we knew, they didn't want us there. We knew that. I mean, as we knew that.
Right.
And so Lincoln Heights, Princeton turned us down. Then Lachlan said, no way. Wyoming and Reading wasn't even an option. So we knew Princeton said, they said, well, they're in your district, you have to take them. So imagine feeling, what? You got to go somewhere we ain't wanted, and you have to take them. As a kid, I understood that.
Right.
Understood that.
Right. You know, there were a lot, because see, I was at Forest Park, and the same thing was happening there, because Green Hills and Forest Park. And so when I was a freshman, there was fighting all the time, every day, in a smoking area, just every day. And the athletes were the only ones ultimately, and I wasn't a part of that crew, that were able to merge some things. You know, so it's almost like you had to depend on the athletes to have any type of friendship, because outside of that, you just had a mess. Yeah,
it was tough, man. It was tough, but again, I'll give grace and honor and glory to my parents for I can't say enough about my parents, man. I can't. Right. You know, anything I did or didn't do, it was not because of the way I was raised. I could never blame it on that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
That was on me.
Right.
You know,
right.
That was on me. It wasn't on them. That was on me.
And I want you to get to that period too, but let's keep marching through this. So you didn't want to play for Princeton.
No.
What changed? What changed? Helped to change that?
Well, I got to the 10th grade, then I had to. There was nothing else left. There was no more junior football, no more Lincoln Heights football. So I got to the 10th grade, and I remember, in the 9th grade, in the 8th grade, I went out for the 8th grade basketball team. And here's another one of those moments. The coach looked at me, he said, Dorron, I'm going to start Tom Smitho because he's taller than you. Huh?
What's that got to do with anything?
And I'm like, because he's taller than me, what? So I quit. I asked that's the first thing and the only thing I ever quit.
Right.
But I told him, I said, Coach, they got 2 teams next year. I'll make one of them, and I'll start at that point guard. So my freshman year, I went back out and I made the team, and of course I started on that freshman team. And then my sophomore year, let me get to the sophomore year, I had to play for Princeton then. You had no choice. There was nobody else football-wise. I could go community. Now it's time we looking at colleges now. I want to go to college. So I got out there and I played JV, junior varsity, and so they had me at 6. It was 5 people in front of me at running back.
Right. Because those were celebrated positions.
Yeah.
Those coaches knew that would be access to college.
You got it.
And so you wasn't in that. So they've been talking about this with their other buddies, and parents, fathers, and boosters.
You got it. And they didn't know me. Like I didn't play no junior high football. I didn't play, so they didn't know me. So some of the guys, hey, now you over here with the big boys. Now we gonna see what you. And to myself, I was saying, boy, you don't have a clue. You don't have a clue. Right. You don't have a clue what you can ready to get into.
Right.
So, fast
forward. What was your
played.
mentality in them practices when they had you 5 guys in front of you? What were you looking for, and what were you thinking about?
It was tough, but the only thing kept me going a little bit was I was starting at cornerback. I played defense too.
Right.
So I was starting at the cornerback.
So you just tag people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tag somebody. Yeah. I'm gonna put somebody about to get it.
Yeah, because they won't let me run. So the second game of the year, we played at school on Montgomery Road. You know who that school on Montgomery Road?
Oh, no, Moeller?
Yeah, I tried not to say that name.
Now they trying to win.
Yeah.
So now they got to think about things differently.
Yeah, so the guys that they had in there was running like, I'm from Lincoln Heights. We ain't scared of nothing.
Right.
I didn't know nothing about them, right? That didn't mean nothing to me. So the coach got mad because the running backs, they was tiptoeing. I mean, they were not running.
Right.
They were
getting plowed.
Right.
And back in the 70s, Moeller was King Moeller. I mean, they were world famous.
Yeah. And Princeton was right there with them at that time too. They were right there because they beat Massline up here in 72.
Right.
And so, but the coach got mad. Our head coach, he was so mad. He said, "Just give me anybody. I need somebody who want to run." And man, Eric, I couldn't get beside him fast enough, man. Boy, I jumped up. I was trying to stretch my neck and everything. So he grabbed me. He said, "You will do." He didn't even know my name. He said, "You will do. Get in there."
You do.
Yeah.
That's how you got your opportunity. You do. You do.
Yeah, he said, "You'll do." So I got in there, man, and the first play I ran, I broke it for 20. The second play I ran, I broke it for 20 more. Ooh. I just needed one more block on each of those runs. I only got to run it 3 times that game.
Right.
And the next day at practice that Monday, coach said, "Son, where you been?" I said, "Coach, I've been right here all the time. You never gave me a chance." And so that day, me and the starting tailback was alternating.
Okay.
At tailback. So
what was his name?
That was at Princeton.
What was the name of the other tailback?
Jack Bennett.
Okay.
Jack Bennett. Jack ended up being a police officer in Woodlawn for almost 30-something years. Yep. Okay. So yeah. And he and I were good friends, man. Right. You know, we were good friends. You know,
right.
You know, that has nothing to do with, you know, competing. We still can be friends, but I'm trying to get it, man. You know.
Now you were a sophomore then?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay.
So verily, if you as a sophomore, if you played varsity, you had to be super duper good.
Right, because back then they didn't do none of that.
No, sir, none of that.
No.
Stan Browder was the only he played varsity. He was with us. He was a linebacker, 6'3", 210.
Ooh.
So
okay.
Coach looked at him and we were practicing. He said, "You come down here with us." So he played varsity all 3 of his years, but he deserved it. He deserved that.
Right.
You know, and so my junior year, I didn't play a lot, but I played a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so here's something I didn't know until it was over with.
Right.
So my parents came up to the school.
Okay.
And they went and talked to the coach. Like, you know, like first they talked to some of the players. Nobody told me this now.
Right.
And so then they went and talked to coach, you know, to the coach. Like, you know, like, why ain't my son? We know he can, what's going on?
Right.
So finally, when my mom and dad they never told me they went up there. To this day, they don't, and, you know, and they still don't know that I knew they went up there because we never talked about it.
Right.
But the players told me, they're like, "Ron, did you know your parents was up here?" I'm like, "No, when?" They was in there talking to coach. I was like, "No, they ain't saying nothing to me." So coach called me in his office and he said, "Dorron, I'm gonna give you a chance." So that was like the latter part of the season. It was my junior year. It was probably. So I said, "Coach, that's all I ever wanted."
Yeah.
All I ever wanted.
Yeah.
So I ended up scoring about maybe a couple touchdowns that year.
Yeah.
So my senior year, fast forward to my senior year, now I'm hearing, you know, coach saying you're too small to play on this team. So I go to the coach that was my JV coach, ended up being my best go-to guy.
Right.
Mr. Cox. I don't mind talking about Coach Cox. That's my guy right there.
Right.
So I went to Coach Cox and said, "Coach, I'm going to move to Richmond, Virginia with my brother because, you know, coach saying that I'm too small. I'm hearing to play on this team." So typical Coach Cox, he said, "Hey, let's go ask him." So I said, "Okay." So we go down there and he's like, "What's going on, Dorron?" I said, "Coach, I'm hearing that you're saying that I'm too small to play." I was 5'7", 145. I was a little guy. Right. I was a little guy, but I could carry my weight. You know, I could carry my weight. So coach, he said, "Sit down, Dorron." So he got the playbook out. And he went through about 100 pages. And every page he turned, he pointed to that number 27. Who was that? I said, "That's me." He said, "You wear that number?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he kept flipping. He said, "Now, you are 95% of my offense. Does this look like somebody that I'm saying too small to play on my team?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, what you gonna do?" I said, "I'll see you at practice, coach." And here's the sad part to that whole story, Eric. There were 2 guys in my community that I grew up with who were trying to run me out of town to get their friend my spot. And it almost worked.
Right. Say that again, Dorron, because that's so powerful, man. Say that again, because too often we're thinking the worst and allowing people who are envious of us to throw us off of our blessing.
Yeah, it was 2 guys that I grew up with.
Yeah.
That had made a plan. They had a friend they wanted to have my spot. So they created that lie. And it almost worked, man, to run me away from town, man. It almost worked, man.
And you just opened your mouth up and you talked to a coach that you trusted.
Yep.
He said,
Exactly.
check that out. That's powerful.
Exactly.
So tell us how that season went then.
Oh my God. Had I left, man, listen, I led the city in scoring. I scored 26 touchdowns that year. I
remember that year.
Oh man, that was probably my best year, ever playing. That was one of my best years. Led the city in kickoff, punt returns, first in the nation in punt returns.
Wow.
I was first team all city, all state, all the first team all American. Every accolade as I played in the East-West All-Star football game, East-West All-Star basketball game. I was invited to go to the North-South football game up in Kenton, Ohio, but I hurt my shoulder.
Right.
Like 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to college. So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna chance that. So I didn't take they call it the Big 33 or something they call it now.
Yeah.
But it was an awesome year for me. I was given hundreds and hundreds of scholarship offers, man. One funny story, man. And here's a thing, like in the 70s, we didn't have social media. It wasn't none of that stuff. You couldn't go online and look at your college.
Right.
And one of my favorite teams was Michigan.
Right.
So lo and behold, Stan Browder, myself, and our quarterback go visit Michigan, Bo Schembechler.
Right.
So we visited, man, 105,000 people at the game. Man, I ain't never seen 105,000 people on TV in my life, man. Right. So I'm looking around like, wow. So Bo Schembechler sits and he says, I give all three of y'all a scholarship right now if you sign. Now I'm a Michigan boy. I love it, and I'm sitting there like, hey,
right.
And I the campus, man, that whole scenery, it put fear in me, man, and that's not easy for me to say. It was. I had never seen that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I hadn't seen that before.
Right.
And we had big crowds when we played more. 10,000, 15.
Yeah.
But
that's packed.
It wasn't like that, But and then I go to Indiana University. And this is one of my, and they had a guy from Princeton that was already there who was trying to help recruit me. But this is my first plane trip.
Right.
This is my first plane ride ever. Now this is my own memory right here.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking down the runway, my mom and dad was back there, right? And so I'm scared to death, like I'm looking at this big old plane, man.
Right,
I'm looking. Right. So every time I turn and look back, I see my father kind of need my mother, like, don't you dare tell that boy to come back here. Man, if she would have said it, I'd have turned around and ran back to it, man. I would have.
Wow.
But I get on the plane, man, and I was the only one on the plane, man. Right. Me, the pilot, and the stewardess. This school chartered a whole airplane just for me to come visit the school, man. They chartered an airplane just for me to come visit their school, man.
Man, I'm so grateful that we having this conversation. Let me just pause for a second, community. So I've known Dorron almost all our lives. And I knew that you were famous. So that's how we saw you. We saw you as famous because you had such accolades and such notoriety around the system, around the city, for being an amazingly talented athlete. But we don't know all of people's stories. Yeah. And I'm so grateful to be able to get this side of it, man, because it still makes me proud right now to know that you were honored in a way that was commensurate to what you had, the body of work that you had put down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing, man. What I tell any kid, even now, if you got 6 visits, take them.
Yeah.
Take them. You earned them.
Right.
Take them.
Right.
So to finish that story, man, I went in the coach's office and I said, and actually it was the coach that puts on the heads during the football season when he put on the team head who gonna win.
Right.
Lee Corso.
Okay.
Actually, it was him.
Wow.
And I went in the office. I said, Coach, I appreciate that plane ride, but can you please give me a bus ticket to go back home?
Oh, that's sweet. That is so precious, man. Right.
Man, I
Right.
was scared to death up there,
Right.
man.
Right.
I was like, nah.
It
So
was like
he
the
laughed.
biggest roller coaster that didn't get down quick enough.
Well,
Like I'm just.
yeah. Oh man, but he laughed so hard, but he said, "Oh yeah, we can accommodate that. Don't worry about it. We'll send you home on the bus." I said,
Yeah.
"Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, man. I
I love
appreciate
that
that."
too, man.
Yeah, you know. So for me, that was one of those moments. Like, man, it really didn't hit me until later on in my life. Like, man, do you realize these people chartered a whole big? I ain't talking about no little plane. I'm talking about a big plane just for me.
That's right. They wanted you, bro.
Yeah, just
Right.
for me.
Mm.
You know, Purdue, Indiana, Purdue. I mean, you name this. Anybody except Ohio State was the only schools that I remember that did not. You know, you can always remember the ones that did not.
Right. Right.
You know, so it was like everybody, man. And so I enjoyed. You know, I went to Bowling Green, and I really like Bowling Green. But the coach said something. He said, "Hunter, we want to look at one more guy. We'll give you a half right now." And I said, "When you taking me home?"
Right.
That's the end of this conversation.
Right.
When we going back to Cincinnati? So, you know, all those experiences helped me in my life. You know, they all helped me enforce my growth.
Mm.
You know, and so I ended up going to Morehead State. I actually narrowed it down to EKU and Morehead State. In the end, I narrowed it down to those. And simply because they made me feel so welcome when I came and visited. I mean, Morehead, and then EKU, I really liked EKU. And I called the coach and I told the coach, I said, "Coach, I'm coming to EKU." And for some reason, when I hung up the phone, I sat there for a minute. I'm like, I don't want to go to EKU. I'm going to go to Morehead. So I called back and I said, "Coach, I changed my mind." And boy, he let me have it. he let me have it. And I always, you know, I use this. I say, "Coach, I'm a kid. Why are you talking to me like I'm 17? Why you know?" But then I said, "Coach, I'm gonna make you pay for that every time we play you." You know, so it was
Oh.
man. But let me back. Wait,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back one game. I'm gonna go
Right.
back one game in high school. We were playing Hamilton Garfield.
Okay.
Hamilton Garfield. They it's Big Blue now. It was Hamilton Taft, Hamilton Garfield.
Right.
They put them together and they got Big Blue now.
Right.
So that's how they came up with Big Blue.
Right.
But I should have never missed this part right here. So you know I was a mama's boy.
Okay.
I was a mama's boy.
Right.
I don't know how. Out of 10 kids, I don't know how I managed to make that happen, but I was a mama's boy.
Right.
And so I come home from school right before we was getting ready to play Hamilton, right? And so Garfield and my mom was sitting at the table crying, right? And I'm like, "Mom, what's going on? Though? What you crying for? What?" And she said the coach was on the radio saying they was gonna break my legs. And I was like, "Huh?" I said, "Mama, I'm a kid." What? I said, "You know what, Mama? Don't nobody make you cry. Nobody makes you cry. Let me see that." I said, "This is what I'm gonna do, Mama." I said, "I'm going to the game. The touchdown record at Princeton is 4 in one game." I said, "Tonight I'm gonna do 5 for you, and then I'm coming home to let you know I'm good. My legs is all right, and then I'll see you, you know, the next day or whatever that might be."
Right. Right.
Well, I went up there, man. I had tears because you know made my mama cry, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make me cry. Make my father cry. Don't make my mama cry, man. So I went up there and I lit him up, man. I had 5 at the end of the third quarter, but the coach, he had mercy on him. He pulled us off. He was up 48-0 at that point. I could have got 10, but the coach had mercy on him and he pulled us back, man. And I went home just like I told my mother. I hugged her real good. "I love you. I'm out. I'm going to kick it with the fellas." You know, so that was one of my most memorable. Because, you know, I don't make mama cry.
Man, that's such a powerful story, man, because it shows that in the face of just a lot of talk and foolishness, that God gave you the power to change that whole scenario in the way that you imagined and knew you could.
Yeah.
And that is inspiration for a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know that people can say crazy things, But it ain't their word that matters.
No.
It's
Now
the
you got to show me.
God put inside of you.
Yeah. And most guys, man, mama, nah, you might get away with that, with daddy, but mama, yeah, we ain't doing that.
Hold on, Dorron, just slow down the frame for us a minute. What was your thought the first time you got the ball?
Oh, I got to get in there. I got to score. I got my mama. I got to do this for my mama. I got to get in there.
Do you remember how you was hitting people? Did you score the first time you touched her, or did you just run over a bunch of people?
It was a punt. I scored. They kicked the punt. I ran it back. We stopped them. They kicked it again. I ran that one back too, back to back. I said, I got to get them, man. I got to get them, man. I owe y'all, man. I was getting them from every which way I could get them from, man. But thank God, Coach had mercy.
Right.
He said, I can't, y'all. We got to stop. We at the end of the third quarter, 48 zip. I could have got 10.
Was you playing defense too?
No, sir. No,
okay, they couldn't afford to get you hurt now.
Defense was over. No more defense.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're too valuable, man. They were writing about you all over. I want you to talk about your basketball career in high school too, and how those parallel with each other, and what you thought about basketball coming off of such a celebrated football season.
Well, I knew that our basketball team, I knew we would be good too, but they had picked us to finish like 8th in the conference. We played in the GMC, and there were some good teams in there, but we were good too. So we started out really well. I mean, we did well. Actually, we did well the whole year. We only lost 5 games, the whole year.
Right.
And so we went to Coach Hillard. Coach John Hillard was the coach back then, and things were, it was still that stuff at Princeton. It was still a little of that, I don't have to say what that
and
is.
You were too fancy back then. They didn't like, because I was, I got cut as a senior. Right. You were still a star, but you were faster than the average coach would want to.
Right.
You had too many tools, too many weapons.
Right. But thank God we had Coach Hillard, because he was excuse me, man. He was the coach at Lincoln Heights when they won the state basketball championship.
Okay.
That was Coach Hillard.
Okay.
Yeah. So so he knew, but he was handcuffed.
Right.
He was handcuffed.
Right.
And we played somebody one time, and I remember heading to his office, man, because I saw some things that no need to be changed, and he and I could talk.
Right.
I'm an extension of my coach, so know.
Right.
So as I turned the corner to go in his office, he looked up and he saw me. He said, "Dorron, I have to." And I turned around and went back to class. I didn't have to say nothing. He didn't have to say nothing else neither, and I didn't. My question was answered.
Right. Wow.
He said, "I have to," and I left it right there because I had that much respect for him.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. Hey, before we go further, there's a question here from one of our community. What advice would you give to young adults when they're facing hard decisions?
For me, you have to follow your heart, man. 9 times I'll say 10 out of 10, man. Your heart really knows. I know what your mind says, a lot of stuff, but your heart, man, whatever your heart is telling you to do, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. I always relied on my heart for everything, man. We say a lot of things, we think a lot of stuff runs through your mind, but that heart is real. Mm-hmm. Everything comes from your heart, man.
Right.
It comes. So, and then be satisfied with the decision you make.
Right.
Don't be like, if you make, people say, man, I wish you would have went to, I wish I would have went to Moorhead where I went. I don't regret that.
Right.
Exactly. I don't regret that at all.
Exactly.
So that's my advice I would give.
Right. So Dorron, we're gonna have to turn the corner. I can stay here for another week and talk to you. Yeah. But our time is moving fast. Way faster than I anticipated that it would, man. What is going on?
Yeah.
So here's what I want to do. I want you to transition from sports a bit to sort of the struggles that you may have had, and then sort of coming back from that.
Yeah. Whew. I tell you, man, once people can make you or break you if you allow them to. Let me say that. If you allow them to. So, I was used to, having it all, sports wise. I mean, the ability, I thought I was a handsome young man. I mean, all of that. I thought, so once I graduated from college and I wanted to play in the NFL, that didn't happen. And so I didn't realize I was depressed, but I was.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't mean depressed where I wanted to hurt myself
right.
But it was like, okay, now why?
Right.
Because I understood. I knew I was good enough, man.
Right.
I did. I knew, but I kept thinking, like, I tried out for several teams, man, and I would always get down to the last cut or the last,
Right.
And I'm like, and so I tried out for the Bengals. I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna move on. Because I had a friend who got drafted in 1980,
right,
and he played with the Bengals, so he got me a personal tryout.
Right.
So I went down there, man, and I ran a 4.40, and I caught punch, kick out. I mean, I didn't drop. I mean, did everything.
Right.
So the coach said, I'll call you in 3 days and let you know what Paul Brown said. Then Paul Brown was still alive.
Right.
So he called me in 3 days. He said, Mr. Hunter, Coach Brown said, you too short. I said, Coach, tell me I ain't good enough. He said, Mr. Hunter, Paul Brown said, you too short. I said, Coach, tell me I'm not good enough.
Right.
He said, Mr. Hunter, he said, this is what I'm going to tell you. He said, I worked you out. I'm the coach that worked you out down here. I saw you. You can play on this team right now. Right. He said, but I'm not the owner.
Wow.
And I said it again. I said, Coach, please, just say it. You're not good enough. Just say that to me. I wanted him to say that. Just say it. Even though you didn't mean it, just say it to me. So that was for me. That was, that was my last, like, hoorah, like, that. So fast forward, man, I ended up, right after that, not long after that, my mother died, man. And there's never a good time. But for me, that wasn't a good time. For me. Right. There's never a good time.
Right.
But for me, that wasn't a good time, man. And I just crumbled, man. I started drinking and drugging and just, you talking about giving my car away for drugs. I'm not ashamed of anything that I done because it's my testimony now.
Right.
And it was bad, man. It was bad.
Right.
And
Dorron, how long did that period last? And it may have seemed like it lasts longer than that. And then how did you find your faith and find your way out?
7 years.
Okay.
I went through that for 7 years, man. And one day I went in my mother's house where she used to preside. And I was standing there, man, and a voice spoke to me and said, look around you. Mm. And I looked around. I was high too, man, but I could hear that voice. Mm-hmm. He said, what do you see? I said, nothing. He said, that's how your life going to be if you don't come to me. That happened to me 3 days straight, man, to the point where I would not go back in that house because I thought it was me tripping, having what? So I messed around there and got behind on my child support, little stuff like that, got locked up. And here's the defining moment right here. I looked up I was at the Just Us Center. I looked up at the numbers on that door, Eric, and it said 1032. Now, that don't mean nothing to you.
Right. Was that your address?
Yes, sir. 1032 Shepherd Lane. And I was like, oh, no. I got right there, ding, I got the message.
Right.
The Lord he was still talking to me like, ding. So when I got out, man, I was in a relationship with a young lady and, everything, folded up on that as well, which, in the end, God had a plan, right? He had a plan for me, man. He just had to, get me where I needed to be. And I went and I traveled a hard road, man. You know how when Moses was out there in the wilderness?
Yeah.
I felt like that. I felt like that. And then if God thought you would help me, he would move you out of my way. He would not see, I know this all now. I didn't know that then. See, He would, if he thought that the pencil would hold me up, he would move that pencil. And there were times I was trying to give up, and I could literally feel hands up under my armpits and say, stand up. Stand up. I was trying to lay down and give up, but he wouldn't let me, man. He said, I got work for you to do. He said, stand up. And he would stand me up, man. And then I received the gift of the precious gift of the Holy Ghost, man. And oh my God, and oh my God, the Lord, he moved me from Seven Hills to Lockland. There was a little church in Lockland that he wanted me in.
Right.
So he moved me like rock throwing distance from that church. Right. And I was sitting at home one night, and in my spirit said, go to church. And I'm like, I don't know what no church. So I called my friend. He said, it's a church across the street. He said, go in that church, man. And if they ask you something, just tell them I told you. And when I walked in, I looked at the pastor, and I knew her face. Right. And I kept saying, why do I know this lady's face? Right. Long story short, I stood in the middle of the aisle, and I was just crying, man. Now, this was, I was crying. This was in 1992. My mama died in 87. So I'm crying. So I step over in the pew, and I'm still crying. So me and the pastor locked eyes. And as we locked eyes, I could feel her eyes go through my body. And I said to myself, this woman just looked through me. I said, she saw, and man, we never lost eye contact. And she came down and she hugged me, man. And boy, I needed that hug right. And when she hugged me, man, she said, I already know, let it go. And when she said that, boy, you talking about a brother crying, man. Man, I cried and I cried. Oh, God, thank you.
Yeah. I'm thankful for that moment right now, Dorron. I really am. I appreciate your testimony, man. I appreciate your testimony because God is real, and he came and rescued you. And out of everything that you shared, this is the most powerful. It's that God has the ability to see us where we are, to love us where we are, to find us, to rescue us.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, man.
Yeah.
Just so grateful for that.
Yeah.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. And so, we're going to go overtime today because this is something that the community and the world needs to hear.
Yeah.
So she hugged you and said, let it go. And what did you let go in that moment?
2 more times. Let me say this, and then I will get right there. So when I left, man, I felt like I was walking on, my feet weren't touching the ground, man.
Right.
And I went home and I said, something in that church, something in there. I don't know what it is. Right. That was the first time I felt the anointing of God. Right. I was only saved about maybe a month at that time. I just got saved.
Right.
And so I went back and I said, that can't happen to me again.
Right.
And I stood in the same spot, man. And I started crying again. I said, man, why you crying? I said, I don't know. And I stepped in the pew and I started crying. I cried and I left there and I felt the same way. And I called my friend. I said, man, I belong in that church, man.
Right.
I said, I belong there.
Right.
And so I ended up joining that church. And I came to the altar one time and I laid down, man. I just cried, man. And I was just now grieving my mother's passing.
Right.
That was 5 years later. I had not even grieved my mother because I didn't know how.
Right.
I used to pretend my mother had moved to California and just couldn't make it back home, man. I didn't know how to deal with that, man. I didn't know what to do with that, man. That thing hurt, man.
Right.
It hurt.
Right.
And so I cried for about an hour, man. I just laid out on the altar and just cried, man. And Pastor said, all those yokes that were on you, God was taking them off you. He was taking those yokes that I was carrying, man. And I felt free. Finally, I was free, man. I was free. God freed me, man. He freed me. Hallelujah. And there's no other feeling on this earth. I could have scored 100 touchdowns. There ain't no other feeling on this earth like the feeling of the Holy Ghost. None.
Right.
None. Right. And so about one of my brothers had died. And I had a question in my heart for 20 years. I didn't know it was there, but God did. And so I was asleep, and God started speaking to me through a cloud, and he said, I want you to go to the funeral and you tell your family. Now here, this is big right here. He said, you tell them that I did not call them to play professional basketball, football, or baseball. He said, I called you to be deacons and preachers and singers and ushers in my church. You tell them I shut that door. And he said, for you, now he talking to me. He said, I saved your life.
Mm. Right. Right. Right.
And I knew exactly what he meant when he said, I saved your life.
Right.
Literally and figuratively,
Right.
he saved my life.
Right.
Hallelujah.
Right. Right.
Amen. And so then that question that I had about NFL, it was answered. It was answered.
Right.
And only he could answer it because he the only one had the answer.
Right. He took away, wow. He took away the hurt that you had been wrongly done because they couldn't tell you that you weren't good enough.
Right.
And God answered it.
Yeah. Yes.
That wasn't my plan for you.
No, sir. No, sir.
Wow.
No. Because he said you would have killed yourself.
Right.
And I wasn't going to let that happen to you. You know, because you got work to do for me. You know, and so here I am, 30 years later. I've been saved for 30 years now, man.
Right.
And that's the best feeling I ever had in my life, man.
Right.
And so that wasn't easy to say to my family, because he did also tell me, he said, some of them are going to like you for it, and some of them going to hate you for what you're saying. Right. But you tell them what thus says the Lord. And so, again, just like he said, some of them was mad at me. Some of them to this day still mad at me. But some of them came and told me, thank you, man, because no matter what goes down, I was raised in the church. Most of us was raised in the church.
Right.
And all the problems that we're having now, amen, the discipline, like going to church, for me, it wasn't an option. You can either get this whooping and you go, or you just go, because you're going. It wasn't an option. Those are the two options I had.
Right.
So going to church, man, and all those things that we learned along the way, even the way I get my hair cut is the way I used to cry because my mom and them made me get it cut like that. Right. And I look and I laugh and I'd be like, all the things that they taught us growing up, man, they had it right all the time, man. We just had to listen. Right. Like when I said earlier, anything I did, that was on me. It had nothing to do with the way I was brought up. Nothing.
That's right. Right. I love that. So, Dorron, transition us to this love then you have for saving the youth. Because you've been on that forefront, man, for many, many, many years. And I'll tell you what, before we have you share, Lydia, why don't you see if you can bring up this video? We're going to bring, you want to just tell us a little background about the video? This was a news interview. Yeah,
we did that because we was getting ready to take some kids down to Moorhead on a college tour. And I want them to know there's always a choice. People, I don't have a choice. There's always a choice.
Right.
There's always a choice.
Right.
Good or bad.
Right.
There is a choice.
Right.
We can't choose our parents.
Right.
But other than that, there's always a choice.
Right.
And our young people need to know that.
Okay, let's take a look.
Age of people pulling the trigger is actually getting younger.
And so often it can be easy to focus on the violence, not the people who are actively trying to find solutions. And we've got great people here in Cincinnati who are doing that. WLWT News 5's Danielle Dindak joins us with the work a program is doing to help at-risk teens find another way.
Good morning, Kelly and Stephen. After a recent spike in gun violence, especially involving youth, WLWT has worked to highlight different groups and programs in our area, trying to give kids a different outlet and make a difference in their lives. Now, one of them, people that's trying to do that, is Dorron Hunter and his Future Ambassadors program. Hunter has organized peer support groups at multiple city high schools, including Withrow, Euler, Taft, and Hughes. He believes all kids are at risk for greatness. Now, a few times a year, Hunter takes students to different universities. This week, they're going to his alma mater, Moorhead State University. They'll tour the campus, meet with different people, including former Giants quarterback and Hunter's former college teammate, Phil Simms, who's a big supporter of the program. Hunter says the point of these visits are to show the group there's more out there for them.
There's always a choice. And so I think our kids, once they see things, and see people that look like them doing these things, graduating from college, playing football in college, playing basketball, even if you don't choose to play a sport, they give out scholarships for being smart. So our kids need to understand that you can do this no matter what environment you grow up in. It might be able to slow you down, but it doesn't have to stop you.
Hunter is so passionate about what he does, and his goal is to be there for the kids and show them that he cares. Now, he did tell me that some of the students who have gone on these tours did attend that university after touring it. Now, if you're interested in his program or know someone who can benefit from it, we'll have much more information about what he does over on our website, WLWT.com. Danielle Dindak, WLWT News 5.
All right. So, Dorron, talk to us about your passion for young people and guiding them, mentoring them, investing in them.
Yeah, we along those same lines, man. I prayed and I asked God, like, because He knows my heart, man, and He knows my passion and my love, and so He gave me that name, Future Ambassadors, man. And so what I did, I've been doing this for a while anyway, but it really came to fruition, and it was really, I started taking them on college tours last year. Right before the pandemic, that kind of slowed me down a little bit, but like last year, we went to Michigan State. Before we went to Ohio State Archie Griffin actually bought the tickets for us to go to the game at Ohio State, which was awesome, man.
Right.
And so and we went down to Moorhead, of course, went to EKU, and a couple of girls are going to EKU this fall because of the trip that we take. So
good.
Our kids, man, nowadays, what I've learned about them, they want that discipline, they want that love.
Right.
They want that.
Right.
All of them don't want to kill nobody. All of them not doing that.
Right.
But we don't highlight that.
That's right. That's right.
We don't highlight that. That don't make good news when we show stuff like that.
Right.
So every opportunity I get, I'm taking them out of here so they can see it. Like when they see, like I said, people that look like them that's doing this, they're not in handcuffs, they're not in the back of a police car, they got a suit on, whatever.
Right.
This is possible for you to be able to do. Right. So my love and passion, God, because of that, He opened a different door that I could continue to work with these young people and let them know, man, this, we all fall down. That's right. But you ain't got to lay there, get up.
That's right.
Man, everybody, you gonna fall down, just get up, man, and keep going. You got to get up.
Right.
Don't just lay there and lay on your back. Just get up, get up.
Right.
And sometimes it's not easy.
Right.
But it can be done. It's up to you, man. Everything inside of me, man, wanted to give up. Right. Everything wanted, but God wouldn't let me. He believed in me more than I believed in myself at that point in my life.
Right.
And whatever God has for you is for you if you allow Him to be, to let Him lead you. But these kids, man, every chance, and I do peer group sessions. You done been to a few yourself, right? Yeah. Go in and talk to them, man. And I bring in speakers like yourself so they can see people that look like them. That matters, man. Right. Especially males. Right. That matters. Right. It matters.
Right.
And so as long as the Lord allowed me to continue to take these trips with them, man, I started a thing, what we call Spread Love Turkey Day as well.
Right.
And every Thanksgiving we give away. This year we're gonna give away 225 turkey baskets, and I got families that I work with within the inner city and even out here, where we live at. There's people in need of help, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, the hardest part for some of them is just asking, man. So I try to make that a little easier. I kind of put it out there, so I'm asking you, so you won't have to worry. Sometimes it's hard for people to ask, man.
That's right.
I don't want people to feel like that when you're around me, man. Don't.
Dorron. So as we come to a close, the story that I want to sort of have you talk about, this is how we almost started. We said we need to share this with the world. You've got a skin disease. I think that's what it is, right? Is it vitiligo?
Yeah, it's called vitiligo. It's
vitiligo. I want you to talk about that, Dorron. Talk about your thinking about it. I think you said even a sibling or two had that.
Yeah.
And then tell us about sort of your experiences with that and some of the reactions that you received.
Yeah. And thank you for asking that question, E. This has probably been one of the most difficult things that I've ever dealt win in my life. You know, no defense, no offense, no this, no that can compare to when I started dealing with this, what they call vitiligo, man. And I started with a spot. I had to go back and look at some pictures when me and my wife and I got married. And because I kept thinking like it was a little spot on my lip, just one little spot.
Right.
And I went back and looked at pictures because I was like, when did it start? You know, and so my mom and dad didn't have it. Their mom and dads didn't have it. But two of my older brothers, you know, had this. Mm-hmm. And I remember and being honest, looking at them saying, oh my God, I hope I don't, you know, I hope I don't get there because I didn't want it. I still don't want it.
Right.
You know, so what I learned through this right here was, unfortunately, man, I've never, like, I don't want nobody to confuse me competing with what I'm about to say. Right. You know, when I was competing with you, that's just me competing. But I was never mean-spirited when it comes to people with a disability.
Right.
None of that.
Right. You were just fight. Your competitive fight.
Yeah. Yeah. But none of that.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah, none of that. Mm-hmm. Because man, I got love and compassion, man. But I would be places and I could feel people staring at me, man. And you know, and that bothered me a lot. And then I would hear people say stuff. Right. And I would have to turn and say, do you realize I can hear you?
Right.
You know, like this does not affect my hearing. And I'm talking about grown people here now. You know, kids, I can kind of understand. But what I would say to the parents, even with your children, you just sit them down and just tell them it ain't even got to be vitiligo. It could be anything. When you see people that look different from you, don't look, stare, don't point, don't laugh. That's not what this is about. Right. You know, I've had kids walk up to me and say, sir, I don't mean any harm. What happened? Mm-hmm. Oh, man, I'd rather for you to do that any day of the week right there.
Right,
you know, because some people think I've been burned, which is understandable.
Right.
I can get, but I've had kids that have that much respect to know how to ask the question.
That's right.
But if we don't teach them, we don't teach them.
That's right, bro.
They don't know. And it's very embarrassing, you know, and it's really hurtful, man, because, and I remember when this first started, I was at a direct center over there on in Evendale. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, I'm telling you, it was a 10-year-old little boy, man, and he was standing there and he called me every name. He said, you the ugliest person. And I was standing there and I was almost froze, man, because I was like, and I'm like, young man, why are you, you know, what? And when I got home, man, I was in tears, man. That little boy really, he crushed me. And my wife, when I came in, I told her, she said, Dorron, if he knew the inside person that you are, he wouldn't feel like that about you. And I needed to hear that. It was just my wife, because she always know what to say, man. That other half, they are, and I needed that, man, because I was crushed, man. Right. And then I started thinking I was glad none of my kids wasn't with me. You know, because that might not have been pretty if I had not had to stop them, because I'm their father. And I'm their father. And then sometimes I used to think I was embarrassing for my own children. And I had to share that with them, man, because I didn't know, man. And they was like, Dad, come on, man. That's you. That ain't us. You know that. You know, but man.
Right.
So that's the stuff I had.
I tell you, Dorron, we don't really know the true meaning of love.
Yeah.
Until we find ourselves in a place where on bad days we might not totally love ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we might even go further to think that other people might not fully love us because of what we've done in our lives, because of where we are. But our Almighty Father, the God in heaven, the one we serve, he lets us know that he loves us and he's created us as love. Yeah. And the love that's inside of you that exudes from you is sufficient to cover all of the evil and sin around you. Yeah. And as I said to you, that in many ways, Dorron, you are one who God has called to be a servant, a servant leader. And you are one that is calling other people to God. Yeah. And this condition in many ways allows those in the world that are in need, most need of God, they will declare themselves by what they do. And whether you can say it to them then or just know who to pray for, you can do the work that God has created you to do.
And let me say this too, E. Like, growing up, and I know you heard this too, a man ain't supposed to cry. Stop lying to our kids.
That's right.
A man, he not only is he supposed to, he need to.
He needs to.
He needs to cry because we hurt too.
That's right.
So we need to cry. Not only are we supposed, God don't waste nothing. He gave us tear ducts for a reason. So we need to cry. And then we said sticks and stones may break my bones and words will never hurt. Stop lying to our kids. Words hurt more than our sticks and stones. Because once you say it, you can't take it back, man.
Right.
You can't take it back. Once you say you can apologize from here to eternity, but it's been said. And they may forgive you, but you can't take it back, man.
Right.
You can't take it back. So, I don't mind my vulnerability now because back in the day, I'd have been like, nah, I ain't. But now, I don't even care, man. I'm going to let it go, let it fly, because that's how I feel. My heart is different. God changed my heart, man. And he changed me. He changed my mind.
Right. Right.
And I'm just, man, I'm grateful, man. I am truly grateful, man.
Right.
And blessed. I'm blessed and grateful.
Yes, you are. And beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, man.
Man,
Appreciate
you are
that.
so beautiful.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I'm grateful to have known you.
Man.
The story that you shared today has filled in some blanks and been a powerful, powerful testimony and witness the work that God created you to do. You've done here today. You've done here this morning. And there will be people that are seeing it now and will see it for years and years and years from now. And there are some people that will fall to their knees and cry out for God because of who you are. And I'm just, words can't express, man, how grateful I am for your life story and for who you are today. I thank God for you, brother. I really do. I love you, Dorron. Is there anything else that you want to share with our community before we close out?
Hey, I just want to, encourage anybody if you're dealing with anything, even like what I'm dealing with. If you, take it to the Lord, man. He the only one can really help you. Friends come and go, but Jesus is always there. And I always say Jesus is the reason for this season. That don't change. He don't change.
That's right.
People come. You can look around you. People come and people go, but he stays the same, man. And I had to go through the mud. I went through the mud, but I came up smelling like a rose, and I thank the Lord for that. And E, I thank you for allowing me to share. I didn't know you was gonna let me go all the way back to my Lincoln Heights days, man. But I appreciate that, man, because that was a big part of my growing up, man, and all the things. You and I met just playing ball, man. But the friendship continued on off the court, man. Even though we competed, that has nothing to do with our relationship now, man. And I love you, man. I always have, Tommy, man. I love old Tommy. I miss him. Wish he could have been.
Hey, you gonna miss it? Anyone here? Tommy, you gonna miss it? You wasn't here. You got to watch the video.
Yeah, so
we're probably gonna have you back to talk about one of your programs, man, and try to raise some money too, man.
That'd be good, man. I love you, man. I appreciate it.
I say to you, the community says to you, we love you, man. We appreciate you. For those of you in our community, I want you to continue to have amazing, transformative diversity conversations, and we'll see you next week for another installment of Diversity Conversations. Bye now.